Hello vinyl community, and welcome back fellow Beatlemaniacs to another video, which today is going to be the first of the countdown videos that so popular among the vinyl community, and I've spent many happy hours watching some of my favourite Beatles YouTubers counting down their favourite albums. So I thought it only right and proper to do my own. So I have by my side a trusty pile of records, and I thought it would be easy to put them in order, because it's not something I've really thought a huge amount about before, because in my head there is no such thing as a bad Beatles album. I'm just going to say that from the offset. But obviously they hit certain heights, and I'm sure it won't be a huge surprise for any viewers when they discover the top three. But I found this quite tricky, and finding out what criteria I was basing this on, I'm not thinking anything other than my personal preference. So we're not talking critically acclaimed, we're not talking the best quality, we're literally talking what floats my boat right on this day as far as the Beatles are concerned. So this is my list, and I'm going to kick off with apparently my least favourite Beatles album, which is Let It Be. And I think I knew this. Just something about it. Is it because it was tainted because it was the last one? Is it because of the Phil Spector thing? Is it because of the ill-fated Twickenham sessions? I don't know. But to me, when I listen to this album, obviously there's great songs on it, but it just doesn't have the magic, and it doesn't feel quite right. There are obvious highlights. I've always really liked Two of Us. I like George's I Me Mine. I like most of the rooftop performances. But this album contains my least favourite version of Across the Universe. I just think it just sounds too slow and overproduced. Ditto The Long and Winding Road, which has never been one of my favourite songs anyway. But it's too OTT. I mean, you can see why Paul had issues with what Phil Spector did to it. But Let It Be, if something has to finish last, and this is it. So I'd imagine that most people were expecting me to start with this, and I just could not do it. I am a huge fan of orchestral music, and of course side 2 of this album has no Beatles music on it at all. It's the George Martin Orchestra, with the incidental music from the animated film Yellow Submarine. And some of these cuts, absolutely, I just absolutely love them. Pepperland is great. Sea of Holes, but particularly March of the Meanies and Pepperland Laid Waste, and Yellow Submarine in Pepperland, the final one. It's just it just makes me smile. What can I say? And an album that contains Hey Bulldog and It's All Too Much can't be bad at all. The next one surprised me. I thought it might be higher, but it turns out it's not, and it's Help, which career-wise was sort of in their transitional period when they were kind of growing out of being Mop Tops, and they were utterly sick of the screaming fans, and the tours weren't fun anymore. And even the Help film, they're kind of phoning it in. They're stoned, and and it just doesn't feel fresh in the way that some of the other albums do. The title track notwithstanding, Ticket to Ride, You're Gonna Lose That Girl, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. There are some fantastic songs on the film side. And side B obviously contains Yesterday, and one of my favourite songs, You Like Me Too Much. If you watch my US albums countdown, I had good things to say about Beatles 6. And I don't know, I think I probably prefer hearing those songs as part of some of those American albums, as sacrilege as that may sound. But yeah, it doesn't hang together as an album for me, this one. Another album that tends to come at the lower end of Beatle fan countdowns is this one. I think it got a little bit of a kicking because it was released at the tail end of '64 when they were utterly worn out. So obviously the previous album had all originals and they went back to covers and things like that. You've got the rather sort of dour look on their faces on the front cover and more downbeat songs as well. But to me, when I listen to this album, the Beatles are starting to expand their instrumental palette a little bit more. They've got much more acoustic guitars. You've got Ringo on timpani on a couple of songs. Interesting little riffs. I've always quite liked the beginning of What You're Doing. Obviously 8 Days a Week is a great single that never was over here. And the opening salvo of side 1, No Reply, I'm a Loser, Babies in Black, rock and roll music. You can't argue with that. I even like Mr. Moonlight, guys, so sue me. Okay. Time for the debut, which just sounds utterly fresh. 4 guys with a big point to prove. Highlights of their live act, plus 1 or 2 new songs. Kicks off with one of the greatest album openers of all time, I Saw Her Standing There, and finishes with probably the greatest album closer of all time, Twist and Shout. And little hidden gems like There's a Place, I've always loved that one. I like Misery, I like Ask Me Why. So the Beatles originals on this are great, and as I'm sure 1 or 2 people have pointed out before, they never quite sound like this again. Double tracking came in late '63, and their voices were never quite as stripped back again, and everything became very produced, whereas this is the raw Beatles, and it's a really great listen. Next one, I'm a bit sad that this one is so low down really, but I guess so many great albums ahead of it, I had to put it somewhere. And of course this is the album that never was in the UK, the Magical Mystery Tour. This is actually the Capitol version from the Beatles in mono. So let me just put this out there. We've got I Am the Walrus on here. Amazing. The Fool on the Hill, love it. Love the title track. And side 2 contains the greatest single of all time, and the Summer of Love anthem and its B-side, plus the big hit of '67, Hello Goodbye. So there's tons and tons and tons of good stuff on here, but maybe because it's not a proper Beatles album, I don't know, but I'm guessing that's why it's firmly in the middle. Next up, With the Beatles. Now this one, he often appears lower down on other people's lists, and this was the album when I was a kid that I listened to more than any other. The way it opens with It Won't Be Long, I love all I Gotta Do, All My Loving, George's first song, and the covers on here I think are absolutely fantastically done. Please Mr. Postman, of course, Roll Over Beethoven, Devil in Her Heart, I've always liked that, Money, the last song on the album, and Till There Was You, featuring that great guitar solo in the middle. And look at that cover, I mean, come on, it's a classic album, and one that I go back to time and time and time again. I think that's amazing. Next up, the album on everybody's lips at the moment, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, in mono, the only way to listen to it at the moment. It's Sgt. Pepper. What can you say? Huge album, culturally, musically, influentially, and otherwise. And I'm going to spend a whole video talking about, well, probably 2 whole videos talking about it in the near future. But not the Beatles' best album for me and for lots of other people, but certainly their most important, and it's certainly very worthy of the anniversary celebrations that are about to ensue. So yes, that album features firmly there. Right, am I at top 5 yet? Yes, I am. Top 5. Okay, so number 5, my favourite early Beatles album, A Hard Day's Night. Completely self-composed, completely Lennon McCartney for the first and only time. Wonderful film, beautiful songs, and for a band to be self-penning so much music at this time was practically unheard of. And I really like every single track on this. There was a time when If I Fell was probably my favourite song. I just loved that harmony when I was a kid. Those 2 voices moulded together. You Can't Do That on side 2, I'll Be Back, the acoustic way ends. Just a very, very fresh album. And if I'm feeling a bit downbeat, this is the perfect antidote to that. Hard Day's Night, number 5. Right, number 4. Now this is where it got tricky. I was sort of rearranging these 4 right up to the point of recording, but in 4th place is Abbey Road. I can't make any arguments for this not being number 1, really. Side 1, great rock songs come together, perfect album opener. Arguably George's best song in Something. Side 2 is the most beautiful construction of songs moulded together to create the famous medley. Ringo's song is great. I Want You, She's So Heavy is incredible. And it's not. Why is it not higher? I could probably put the blame on Maxwell Silverhammer, maybe. I know lots of people like it, but I really can't bear it. So Abbey Road features at number 4. Number 3. Obviously, you know what's left. So this is the order I'm going for. Rubber Soul in at number 3. I've done a video on the US version of Rubber Soul, which I know lots of people love, including myself, but for me I love the British version more. Drive My Car, Norwegian Wood, You Won't See Me Nowhere Man, Think For Yourself, The Word, Michelle. What can I say? I mean, I'm not the greatest fan of What Goes On, but it's there. And you've got Girl, I'm Looking Through You, In My Life, Wait, If I Needed Someone, Run For Your Life. I think the songs speak for themselves. The Beatles are becoming more experimental, instrumentally more interesting, compositionally more interesting. I've talked about a lot of these songs before, so I'm not going to repeat myself again, except to say this features In My Life. And what a great cover. So Rubber Soul in at number 3. Number 2 could be number 1. Number 1 could be number 2. Today I happen to be feeling that the White Album is number 2. Is this the most eclectic set of songs that have ever been released by a major artist? It could well be. If I was stranded on a desert island, I would take the White Album with me, simply because every single type of music you could possibly imagine is on there. And just career highlights from the Beatles. While My Guitar Gently Weeps, Happiness Is a Warm Gun is my favourite John Lennon song outside of In My Life. Blackbird, Birthday kicks off the second record really strongly. You've got Helter Skelter on there. I even like Revolution 9. I really, really like Revolution 9, and I'd be interested to hear what people think of Revolution 9, because obviously that gets quite a bashing, as it is, you know, the Beatles at their most self-indulgent, or should I say John Lennon at his most self-indulgent, but it's always freaked me out, Revolution 9, and I always return to it because I just think it's a great piece of work rather than piece of music. Massive poster, those 4 iconic pictures, the completely white sleeve, the number on the front. The White Album, guys, is my number 2, which means in at number 1, no surprises. Talked about this before in an album review again, so I'm not going to spend too long on it this time, except to say that Revolver, for being the Beatles at the top of their game, the White Album has lots and lots of different musical styles on it, but you do get the impression when you're listening that it's a lot of solo songs as well, whereas Revolver is definitely the 4-headed monster at the height of their powers, each contributing to each other's songs, enhancing them, making them as good as they can possibly be. And I wish that Revolver had got the huge brouhaha that Sgt. Pepper is currently having this year on its own 50th anniversary. But maybe in the future we will get a super deluxe version of Revolver. But in the meantime, my trusty mono is how I listen to it, and that is my favourite Beatles album, which probably means that is my favourite album of all time as well. So there we have it. That is my list. Do let me know in the comments whether you agree, disagree, what your favourite is and why. And the next time I will see you, I will be unboxing the Super Deluxe edition of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which I'm hoping to receive on Friday. And then after I've had a bit of time with it, I will do a full review of that as well. And I really look forward to watching the rest of the Beatles vinyl community videos on the same release and seeing what we think about it. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.